the fifth kind, brought to you in association with Gaia.com. Follow the links to unlock the entire Gaia library with a special 99-cent sign-up offer.
In 1849, thousands of Sumerian cuneiforms were found northwest of Ur at the ancient cities of Sippar and Nippur.
In 1849, Henry Layard performed many excavations on the Sippar site and discovered about 20,000 tablets, Sumerian and Akkadian. And amongst all the tablets discovered, about a dozen of them are about the Garden of Eden.
Sumero-Akkadian researcher and author of 8 books regarding Sumerian translation, Anton Parks, believes that for hundreds of years, we have been translating these tablets wrong.
Gary Zeitlin, qui est scientifique, qui a travaillé.
Gary Zeitlin, who is a scientist who worked on the SETI project for many years and collaborated with NASA, he was very interested in the Sumerian translations, and he provided me with these 10 tablets found at Sippar to check symbols one by one. I noticed one translation saying one thing, and the other saying sometimes the complete opposite. The true translations did not comply. I persistently did research on Hebrew, but nothing was coming out of it. And then completely by chance, I came across a Sumero-Akkadian lexicon, and this is when I could finally, slowly start to translate the tablets. In biblical text, we constantly read about this idea of heaven or paradise. This comes from the Greek paradisios, and this literally means enclosure for wild animals. Not paradise, a term that was later transcribed as garden during the Hellenistic era. If we go back to the original translation in the Sumerian tablets, it says, "The men who serve the gods work for them in the garden and are treated like animals." It is a very clear and recurrent theme. They are slaves who serve the divine community. In Hebraic texts, we understand that the humans seem happy in this so-called paradise, which is, in fact, more like a concentration camp, according to Sumerian texts. In my translations, we also discovered the word Karsag, which translated to City of the Gods. It's interesting that all the highest points in Turkey are named Karadağ, which strangely resembles Karsag. Jerry sent me images of this site from Google Earth. And at the back, on the mountainside, there is a little plain. This is where I think the Garden of Eden of the Gods was located based on my translation of the text.
Lorsque les dieux sumériens sont arrivés sur Terre, ils se sont établis sur cette.
From my translations, I discovered when the Sumerian gods arrived on Earth, they settled on this mountain in order to create a colony and be able to survive. Apparently, they suffered damage and ended up on this mountain because of a war, and they found shelter. Many experts believe that they came from the Pleiades star cluster. My opinion is that they came from there. Maybe the war broke out around there. But I really believe that this is where the Anunnaki were created. During this conflict, on one side you have a matriarchal regime, and on the other side, a patriarchal one, with all these new gods. There are conflicts in space, those new landscapes, like it says on the genealogy of the land tablet. These gods are going to change the way life gets implanted on Earth. The gods are going to create new conditions for life to bloom, for their colony to thrive. These are the people who have the knowledge to clone. They can clone themselves and then humans. In the text, it says they take the genes from their opponents, who they consider inferior, who they name as Kingu. They use their blood, and they will go on to create the new human who is going to serve them with these genes. They are called gods, but they were humanoid beings of a rather reptilian type. The text of Eden that I translated depict clearly and quite frequently the reptilian features of the gods. I personally estimate that the gods arrived approximately 300,000 years ago. And this derives from the fact that Homo sapiens arrived shortly after. I say this because throughout the text, genetics and the transformation of the human being are recurrent themes. The two particles that compose the word Eden are E, which means home, and Din, or Tin, which is life. But indeed, they are not alone. Humans are already on Earth. Who are these human beings? What can be noted in the Sumerian tablets, when they clearly speak of creating workers to serve the Anunnas, the main geneticist is always Enki. He works with the genome that is on the planet to create a new kind of human. He is usually helped by priestesses that we often call the Nintis, who are the priestesses of life. They know how to clone with him. He can change the human genomes according to what Enlil asks of him, which would be left-brained, well-disciplined humans. It is said that Enki secretly modifies the human genes by group or by location and imbues some humans with a knowledge that is different, to the point where the other gods turn against him. His experiment will change the human genes to enlighten mankind. And throughout this cloning process that the Anunnas and Enlil are overlooking, I think that some humans filter through all of this and start becoming independent. An interesting and very important name in the biblical text and the Sumerian text is the word Adam from the Garden of Eden. Extensive tests have been conducted to see where this word came from, consistently looking for Hebrew roots, but it is a Sumerian word which means animals. Again, we understand that human beings were considered to be animals by the Sumerian gods, and this is where lies the conflict between two gods, Enki and Enlil. Enki wants to treat them like the other gods. Satam in Sumerian means the administrator. For years, everybody has been looking to find where this word came from. Books revolve around this issue. It is a Sumerian term. I don't understand how nobody saw it. It is very clear. We find it in ancient lexicons. Enlil is often referred to as the Great Satam, the Master Administrator. In the Sumerian text, Enlil systematically asked Enki to go negotiate and talk with humans. He is always the one to deal with them. Remember, he is a humanoid with reptilian features. And in Sumerian tablets, he is always, or very often, called the Serpent, just like in the Bible. He is the only one that the humans are going to see. And when they see him, they see a serpent-like humanoid. I reckon this is why he is called the Serpent in the Garden. It is interesting to wonder why the serpent in Sumerian text, just like in the Bible, comes to the woman. I think there are two reasons. The first one is that I think the woman was more accessible and available when she was in the garden. Therefore, he was more often around women who were collecting food for the colony. The second reason is that I think women are the future of mankind. They raise their children, they transmit their knowledge to their children. Enki is going to tell the women the secret of tool making. This is expressed as niche in Sumerian, which means tree. This means for the first time mankind could have two sides of the tool. The side is fundamentally good so that they can take care of themselves, and the tool that is fundamentally bad, which they could use to defend themselves. One could wonder why Enki insists on getting this particular secret through to the humans. Well, he has the desire to set them free. There's a spectacular scene where humans take up arms and go up the mountain of the gods to revolt, and even maybe try to kill all the gods. What happens is an abomination. They put back on track the few survivors. Indeed, from what we can grasp from his personality, Enki was all about peace and wouldn't use tools in order to kill, as he was perfectly aware of what would happen. So this scene of humans rebelling against the gods is quite special, and it cannot be found anywhere in the Bible. Each time I see the first movie of the Planet of the Apes, it makes me think of this story. Let's put this back into context. Replace the apes with reptilian gods, and you have the exact same story. It is the exact same story. It stayed somewhere in our brain, and this is why we can find similar elements in movies. We can find similarities as well in human behavior.
Finalement, la Genèse, c'est pas si clair que ça qu'elle aurait été rédigée.
The book of Genesis was really written between 200 and 300 BC. It is important to know that the Bible, where we find the most complete book of Genesis, is dated from 400 AC, which brings us to this idea, that when scholars are compiling the book of Genesis, they must have made a choice. A deliberate choice to keep or take out some elements in order to make the Bible as we know it today.
Que certains d'ailleurs intitulent conspirationniste.
When you start looking at these subjects, whether it is on the web or in some books that people qualify as possibly conspiracy books, it is often spoken of a genetic lineage, reptilian, and of royal blood. I do think that some royal bloodlines still exist nowadays that come from the Anunnas, specifically the lineage of Enlil, Ninurta, and An.
Donc, moi je pense qu'on est toujours sous l'influence de ce serment que l'humanité.
I think that we are still under the influence of the oath sworn by humanity in front of the gods and their chariot. At this particular point, humanity forbade itself from ever knowing freedom and from thinking freely. They more or less enslaved themselves. We can see that in general, human beings are quite submissive. When certain laws pass nowadays, instead of saying that we don't agree, we first say yes. And if we find a couple of brave men who are ready to protest, in that case, things can get moving. But it can take decades or hundreds of years before anything happens. Slavery is a good example. Therefore, I think we are still under the oath that the human race swore to the Sumerian gods in front of their spaceship. I think that there are several ways of breaking this type of oath. First of all, by acknowledging it, by allowing oneself, and by saying it out loud. I am not anymore under the oath that was sworn to the Anunnas today.
Is it possible that modern-day religion and government structure have been mistranslating our human past to keep us under the control of Enlil or Yahweh?
Thank you for watching The Fifth Kind, brought to you in association with Gaia.com. Follow the links to unlock the entire Gaia library with a special 99 cents sign-up offer.